All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome in to Sad Soul of the Skull after today's absolutely brutal loss to the Detroit Lions. The Vikings fall 30-24, I believe. Is that correct?
Yep.
30-24 to the Lions. So we'll go around, give some thoughts on the game, of course, and look at what should the Vikings do from here now. So, I mean, we can go around again, and I'm sure the initial thought I have is the same thing everyone has, because I know it's what we talked about too as we watched the game, and that's, I mean, honestly, the Lions didn't win this game. The Vikings lost this game. The Vikings were a dumb team in a lot of the things they did. I mean, we saw the turnovers, other just dumb penalties, and I know that roughing the passer one that was on
Patrick Jones.
Yeah, Patrick Jones. That was very debatable. There are other debatable things too, but I mean, if it was up to me, very winnable game for the Vikings, and they lost it. And in my mind, it's kind of their fault that they lost this one. So that's what I think about this.
Yeah. I'm going to give credit to this team first off. I mean, this team just continues to fight. And if that's one thing, that's a positive you're going to take away when we look back on this season, no matter what happens. I mean, Kirk Cousins goes down against Green Bay. You're sitting at around 500, I believe, when he goes down. And this team, could have just bent over and said, well, whatever, season's over. We'll just start looking forward to next season. But no, this team continued to fight. And even when they were down 9 with 7 minutes to go, they still fought. They almost came back and won it. And, the Mullins interceptions suck. And but I'm still going to stand by Nick. I mean, you got to stick to him going forward. He threw for 400 yards today, 2 touchdowns, two that were really bad interceptions. One that was just a prayer that you had to throw on 3rd and long. And then the 4th down one wasn't no interceptions are good, but those are my takeaways on the game. And the defense didn't play good at all either. It seems like Flores has kind of been figured out, which kind of sucks. So they're going to have to relook some things on defense there.
Yeah, Lions are one of the top offenses in the league, and just kind of like what you said, it's only a matter of time before you scheme for blitzes differently. There was one play on defense I remember. I think Caleb Evans thought they were playing a zone, and it was actually man, and that left someone wide open. So just some things to communicate. In the second quarter, by the 2-minute warning, they're trying to draw you offside. It feels like everyone knows that's what you're trying to do, and you jump offside and you give them 5 extra yards. Just some of those small things, just not disciplined enough, and those mental errors. But I'm going to agree with you, Sam, 100%. This team is hard. They're going to fight. I'm not going to question this team in terms of their fight, because they obviously want to win. This is a team that still believes they can win. They're still mathematically in the playoff hunt. They fall to 8, but it's still very much possible. But they got to figure that stuff out. Brian Flores, as you said, the defense just needs to reinstill their confidence. And overall, as the emotions kind of wear down, I would think when you watch film, I think Kevin O'Connell will go back to Nick Mullins, his quarterback. But your quarterback just can't turn the ball over. Too many turnovers, too many turnover-worthy plays on his part. There was one where he was at 2nd down, he was sacked, and then he just dropped the ball like a mic drop. That could have ended up being a fumble. There was that throw to Josh Oliver that easily could have been an interception, but it was dropped by the defender. Even if, you're not putting up 400 yards, if Josh Dobbs or Jaren Hall comes in, throws for only 100 yards, they still move the ball downfield, but don't turn the ball over. I think that's the direction you need to go, rather than I wasn't know the last part I was going to get at, but basically, if you're going to be a quarterback right now at this time of the year, you can't turn the ball over. It's just that simple.
Yeah, I see Sam. He did voice his opinion a bit on this, but we did kind of, and we'll get more into it obviously now. So Nick Mullins today went 22 for 36, 411 yards, 2 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. Sam here has voiced that if it was up to him, he would roll with Mullins with the consistency. Mullins has been a consistent quarterback. Not that he's been a good, consistent quarterback, but he has been consistent. We've seen what we've needed to see from him. And just watching the game with you, it seemed like you were kind of on the same page with me. If it was up to me, I would be willing to go with Jaren Hall. but I don't think they're going to do that. They're just not going to throw a rookie in there in the middle of a playoff race.
Mm-hmm.
Their ownership, coaching, front office, whatnot, they're not going to do it. But
and I definitely see that point, and I see why people want to go with Hall. I just think, if Jaren Hall was a second-round pick, I think it's no question. Like it's no question. Or if he was like a historically like really good college quarterback, there would be no question for me. But just being that he was a 5th-round pick, he was a day 3 pick for a reason. I mean, I don't see how this offense is going to get so much better with Jaren Hall, because people are acting like, he's just going to come in and throw for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns and no interceptions. Like he's not a 5th-round rookie. And, Mullins is a guy who has experience. He has experience in the NFL. And I think that's what you have to roll with at this point. If this was week 8 and Kirk Cousins went down and Jaren Hall never got that concussion, I think you can stick with him rolling forward. If you just threw him in and say he played super good against Atlanta and then you just keep rolling him, that would be a different story. But with 2 games left, which are basically, you have to win at least one of them. You most likely have to win both of them to get into the playoffs. I don't think you don't want your rookie quarterback essentially making his debut against basically what is going to be a playoff game, because it's basically win or you're done.
Yeah.
And I just don't think that's a good environment for a rookie quarterback to just be thrown in like just cold turkey.
The best thing, if that were the direction they go next week, is a home game. So it takes a little bit of that sort of tension away. But then obviously when you talk about week 18, that is a whole different beast. But
yeah,
I think the point I'd make is that if I was advocating for Jaren Hall, it's that Nick Mullins has some upside, but we've seen the downside. Whereas if you throw Jaren Hall in, everyone's going to be expecting downside. So there is only upside. I mean, sure, he can be awful, but I feel like that's just what people are going to expect when you throw a 5th-round rookie in. So then if he goes out there and throws for 300, to me, I just don't see any real reason why not to at this point. I mean, the Vikings have nothing to lose anymore. They're probably not going to make the playoffs. I mean, they could, but I just don't see it anymore with this team. I've lost this team a little bit.
I think it's just too unrealistic for a rookie quarterback. Like the Vikings can win these last 2 games with Nick Mullins. I don't think they can win these last 2 games with Jaren Hall. Now, if the Vikings go lose to the Packers and they're mathematically eliminated from the playoffs, or all of a sudden, they're playing, all of a sudden they become eliminated from the playoffs next week, I think then you definitely 100% start Hall that last game of the season. But
I bet they'd treat that like a preseason game if they were mathematically eliminated. If there's any chance, though, then there's no way.
But I mean, I think there's too much risk. I mean, Mullins has shown he can win games. He hasn't yet, obviously, but I think these last 2 games they're gonna roll Mullins, and I think it's the safest bet.
It's a safe bet, but O'Connell's got to be sitting in that meeting room. You can't put the ball in harm's way. That's my biggest concern, I think, with any fan. It's just the turnover-worthy plays there were so many. And it just, when you're battling in the thick of a playoff race, it's just the last thing you want to hurt you.
Kevin O'Connell said something interesting this week. I wish I remembered the exact quote. I don't. But when he was talking about Nick Mullins last week, he talked about how Mullins it was something along the lines of like critical errors. That was what he said. He didn't just say like simple mistakes, like, oh, bad throw here or there. I mean, we looked at that Cincinnati game and we can all agree he did make critical errors in that game. And it costed the game. Had he converted some of those plays like in the red zone, they probably never would have been overtime. The Vikings probably would have won that game. Mm-hmm. And again, to me, that feels like the same thing today. He wasn't making just simple little mistakes. He was making some critical errors that lost it on this team, especially obviously the end of the game is what pops out. But I mean, he had some nice throws today. I'll definitely give that to him. And I said that last week too. He definitely had some really nice throws in tight windows. He had some good accuracy, but then there are some times where he just has bad plays that just shoots you in the foot. And yeah,
And that's also what you're going to get out of it. Like, there's a reason Nick Mullins isn't a starting quarterback in the NFL. There's a reason Josh Dobbs isn't a starting quarterback in the NFL. There's a reason Jaren Hall wasn't a first or second round pick. I mean, we've been saying it all year. The quarterback play is obviously going to get worse when ever since Kirk was out. And, this is frankly what you're going to get from backup quarterbacks. I mean, they're backups for a reason. We've seen it with Jameis Winston his whole career. And, Mullins did make some really good throws, and that's the upside to him. He made some throws that Dobbs for sure doesn't make. I don't think Jaren Hall makes them, just because they're like they're NFL quarterback level throws where, someone with experience, they can split the linebackers, they can split cover 2, they can split cover 3. But what it ultimately comes down to, and that's Mullins' whole career and why he's a backup, is the interceptions. I mean, his interception to touchdown ratio, I don't know what it is now, but it's pretty much 50-50. And when you look at a starting quarterback in the NFL, they will make mistakes. They'll throw interceptions, but what they do avoid are those key turnovers and those big mistakes. And it seems that, Mullins just has been making those too often. And frankly, it's led to the last 2 losses.
Yeah, Matt kept pointing out during the game how on I don't know if it was 3 interceptions, at least a couple of them, and just other throws. Nick Mullins definitely had issues underthrowing the ball.
Yeah.
There's that double flea flicker. If he just leads Johnny Munt, that's a touchdown. He threw him like a back shoulder throw when he was wide open. I didn't really understand that.
It looked like he got a little pressured on that. Obviously I'm not going to complain about a completion, but that's another thing that's the difference just between a backup quarterback and Kirk Cousins. I mean, you had another one, that KJ Osborne deep ball he completed that was kind of underthrown. I mean, he completed it and the Vikings ended up scoring a touchdown on that drive, but with a starting quarterback like Kirk Cousins or somebody like that, that's probably a touchdown. That's a walk-in touchdown. The same thing with bunt. And that's what you're going to get out of almost every backup in this league. And, I don't know what else to expect. I think something that's not going to get talked about enough is just the defense not playing well. Because, I mean, if the defense forces another punt or two like they have been all season, the Vikings win this game. And, you're not going to – the quarterback play is obviously going to be a lot worse. But, I mean, the defense just has to step up. And that's another one of the things that just kind of fell apart.
So, yeah, the Vikings' run defense was not what we normally witness. They've been really good this whole year, pretty much. Sorry.
The run defense has been good all year. They've been gashed, though, but the Detroit Lions rank second in rush offense for pass offense. So they have a good offense. Yeah. I understand where you can come in and say, well, I wish the defense would have played a little bit better, but you have to give credit where credit's due. That's a great offense. Ben Johnson's got a great unit over there.
Yeah. So, Jahmyr Gibbs had 80 not 80 carries. Sorry.
Wow.
He did not have 80 carries. He had 80 yards, 2 touchdowns. David Montgomery had 55 yards and a touchdown. In total, they gave up 36 carries, 143 yards, and 3 touchdowns. The Vikings rush defense did. Now, on the opposite side, Jared Goff throwing, he was 30 for 257 yards, 1 touchdown, no picks.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it felt like their run defense, which you said the Lions rush offense is really good this year, and there's no denying that. They were getting gashed quite often, but they did a good job holding Jared Goff. I mean, honestly, in my opinion, Jared Goff is an underrated quarterback. He's actually pretty good. Like, just watch him.
He's what you call the game manager, and that's not a negative connotation. He just does a good job of moving your team up and down the field and limiting the critical mistakes. I mean, Sam Laporta only had 3 catches for how many yards? He's a big part of that offense. But then again, Amon-Ra St. Brown had what? 11, 12
over
catches, over 100 yards.
10 catches for over 100.
Yeah. I mean, they established him, and that got the pass game going. And that was really all they had. A couple plays to Khalif Raymond here and there.
And frankly, that's what the Lions should do in that game. When you have, Byron Murphy out, and then all of a sudden Mekhi Blackman goes down, and you have Jalen Williams playing in his first NFL game. And there you have Andrew Booth, who has shown some improvement, but is by no means a great cornerback. So, I mean, the Lions just took advantage of Vikings injuries, which is another thing that's just plagued this team all year. It's something they've fought through. And, they do have a phenomenal offense. Their defense is not great by any means.
Yes.
So, I mean, they made a play when they had to. And, the Lions made that play, the Vikings didn't. And that made the difference in the game.
And you look at the last drive for the Vikings, it would have obviously helped to have Hawkinson out there. It would help to have Jordan Addison out there. But just losing those guys was tough. Yeah. At the same time, you're trying to make a play. You're trying to do something out of the ordinary.
I mean, yeah, and that's just pointing at another thing, like how hard this team fought. I mean,
Exactly.
Addison and Hawkinson, 2 of your top 3 playmakers on offense go down, and all of a sudden you have guys like Brandon Powell stepping up, making plays. Johnny Munt had a nice catch. I mean, Johnny Munt missed a few, but that's what you're going to get out of Johnny. Like the difference between Johnny Munt and TJ Hawkinson is obviously astronomical, but you had guys step up, and that's frankly the reason the Vikings were even in the game on that last drive.
So this is just a personal opinion here, but I thought the Vikings secondary did actually a pretty good job without Byron Murphy today.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Byron Murphy's been a really good corner all year. You don't see him a lot, but that just means they're not throwing it his way because that's how good he's been. Amon-Ra today had 12 catches, 106 yards and a touchdown. Jameson Williams had 43 yards. And other than that, there was really no one super notable in that pass game. I mean, they held Sam Laporta did just 3 catches for 18 yards.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought they would get gashed through the air more with their top corner out, but outside of Amon-Ra, they did a really good job.
They held their own. You have to give that to them. And Amon-Ra is going to be a star in this league for years and years to come. I mean, him and Jefferson are going to be top receivers in the league for the next 10 years. And, Amon-Ra is just a phenomenal receiver. And he's just going to have games like that. Like that's going to happen. And, the Vikings are going to have to get used to that because they're going to be playing him a lot, obviously. But with Laporta, I think you kind of have to credit the safeties and linebackers. Metellus did a great job on him. Harrison did. I mean, you had Pace and Hicks back. That was really helpful too with Laporta. If Hicks doesn't play, I think Laporta probably has a few more catches because you have maybe Troy Dye guarding him instead of Jordan Hicks.
It seemed like obviously we've talked a lot about the passing game for the Vikings and Nick Mullins. Some of that, I think the issue that they had today was they were one-dimensional. There was no run game for the Vikings.
Offset that first drive, though, it felt like they got going a little bit with Chandler, but just like you said, after that, it felt like non-existent.
Sorry, go ahead.
And I think part of that is just because when you're losing like that in the fourth quarter and you're down 2 scores, you're going to have to throw the ball. And, Chandler, that you take away a whole quarter. I mean, Chandler did have some good runs. And, I still think he should be running RB1 going forward because you saw the Chandler runs compared to what Madison. I think Madison had 2 carries for 3 yards or something like that.
I'll read off the Vikings rushing today. Ty Chandler led the team. He had 8 carries, 17 yards and a touchdown. Nick Mullins is listed with 1 carry, but not really. 1 attempt, 1 yard. Alexander Madison, 2 carries, -1.
Yeah, exactly.
In total, they had 11 carries for 17 yards.
And Detroit, they do have some pretty good. They have great linebackers. Alex Anzalone's underrated. You have Jack Campbell, the rookie from Iowa, who's going to be a really good linebacker in this league here. You obviously have Aiden Hutchinson, who's more of a pass rusher but can make plays. And they have not a super amazing D-line, but they have a D-line that can hold their own. And
Isaiah Buggs is a nice guy that can clog up space.
Buggs is really good. And then, I mean, at Green Bay next week, I think the Vikings should have a little more success running the ball. They do have Kenny Clark in that middle, but outside of him, there's not a ton of great guys that the Packers have that can stop their runs. So hopefully that's something you can get going next week.
So the Vikings had 4 players today that had at least 50 yards. And I don't know why I'm highlighting this, but I am. Brandon Powell had 3 catches for 53 yards. Mm-hmm. I actually kind of like Brandon Powell.
His catches were all for big gains.
Mm-hmm. And, Powell's one of those guys this year that's really stepped up. I mean, you bring him in as he was a wide receiver 4, maybe even the wide receiver 5 at the beginning of the year. You pretty much, the only reason he was on the team was because he returns punts. But with, you've had guys like Jefferson, who's obviously missed a bunch of time, and we've seen Powell step up time and time again, and he's not going to make any crazy plays by any means, but he's a guy that you can trust to throw to. He's a veteran, and that's honestly kind of what I like having at a wide receiver 4 instead of a younger rookie, and you have a veteran there that can kind of step up when needed. And I would like to see the Vikings. This is just off-season stuff. I'd love to see I was thinking about this the other night. I'd love to see the Vikings go out in free agency and just get an absolute speedster for that position, because the Vikings don't. You have Jefferson, who's obviously fast and does everything so well, but you don't have that one guy that at any moment can just take the top off of a defense, like a Quez Watkins or something like that.
This is just kind of a small point, but I'm proud of Josh Oliver, Johnny Munt, and CJ Ham. We all talked about him, I think, on last week's episode about how none of them got the ball, and all 3 of them got the ball at least once today.
Yeah, And something I did forget to bring up on that podcast is CJ Ham still does play like a pretty big role in this offense. And what he is used for now is just as a pass blocker. And we've seen him do that, and that's helpful with the team. He gave up a bad sack today. That was on him. But, I mean, in those 3rd and long situations, now I don't love that you're paying a guy that much money to just come in on 3rd down and block. But, I mean, yeah, that's his role, and he's been doing it well.
So yes, at least he touched the ball today. So
yeah.
that's happy for me. With that said, I think we can kind of look at the predictions and the other good stuff. So I'll go here, share screen. Boom. There we go. So these predictions are actually, there's probably more that have come off the board, but I'll go through them later. I don't really feel like doing it right now. So these are just the immediate ones that jumped out. I said those 3 players would have at least 50 yards. Addison got hurt, so he didn't really have a chance. Another Addison one, wrong because he got hurt. Sam Z said Vikings offense would have at least 2 turnovers. They had 2 turnovers in the first half alone. Big Lou said JJ would have at least 1,000 yards by the end of his 8th start. He had a great game today, but he still only finished with probably around 800, I think.
6, yeah, something like that.
Something 700 or 800. He was at like 681 heading into today's game. So, something like that. You said the Lions would win the NFC North, and they did. You said Amon-Ra would have at least 100. He had, what'd I say, 100?
106.
Okay, 106. You said Nick Mullins would not have a turnover. That was big red.
Yeah, that was red right away.
Terrible prediction there.
Yeah, I try to be positive.
Sam O had another terrible beat here. He said the Vikings would score at least 25, and they put up 24.
Oh, I knew that one was gonna come. I knew that one was gonna come back to bite me, and they would score like 23, 24. But
You were so close.
And then
Yeah.
Sam Laporta having over 50 yards and a touchdown, not even close to 50 yards and not even close to a touchdown, which I will thank because I am going up against him in fantasy right now.
what was my 3rd prediction this week?
Come
off.
What was it?
I think that might have
Unless
been
I
the
asked.
season.
Oh, it might have been the Eagles one. The Eagles. I think it was this one.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. That's right. Yeah.
I put them in order of like kind of when they'll happen because that kind of makes it easiest to sort through them.
Yeah.
So I think it was that one.
Yeah.
So then we can kind of look at game picks here. That game ended.
Ooh,
Who won that
That
one?
was the Jets. Jets kicked a walk-off field goal.
Thank God. They were up by
Washington
like.
almost came back. That was crazy.
Yeah. Thank God. That made me scared. Oh, what'd I do?
You made a whole
I'll fix
section.
that later. So yeah, there's us.
I got
we
the Jets
actually got
one
a
right.
fair amount of green, so that's
I
good.
got the Jets one right too. If you want.
Then this is what we got going on the rest of the week. And yeah, I'll fix all that later and I'll fix the rest of the predictions too. But I think we can end share. I think that pretty much does it for this one. People got places to be, Christmas to celebrate, family to visit. And I'm visiting my family right now. It's this guy. So I think that pretty much does it, unless either of you guys have any last things you'd like to share.
On the
On the
Green
Green
Bay.
Bay.
All
Yeah.
right. We'll see you guys on Wednesday, it appears probably then. So everybody have a Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas to all y'all's families. We will see you on Wednesday. Have a good night. Peace out. And as always, Skol Vikings.